Here is something I will never forget. My first pimple, when I was about 9 years old. I woke up, and there it was, angry and red, and at the very tip of my nose. It was impossible for anyone who saw me to ignore it, and my great-aunt Lillian aggressively offered to pop it for me. She was only one squeeze in when the pain became too much for me to bear. But I remember wondering, if I had let her continue, what would have come out of that bright, throbbing boil? You've likely heard the same story as this one. A woman goes to bed and feels a tickle upon her face. It's so gentle, she thinks nothing of it. However, when she wakes up, she has a small pink spot on her cheek. It's only a pimple, she thinks to herself. She covers it with powder and goes about her day. The next day, the pimple is larger, bulging, and she considers popping it. But it will probably scar my complexion if I do that, she tells herself, and she lets it alone. The next day, she wakes up, and the spot has grown to the size of a ping-pong ball. It is so inflamed, the skin so stretched, that it shines in her bathroom's light. The woman gets closer to the mirror and realizes that she can see the pimple twitching ever so slightly, and through the pain of it, she senses frantic movement within. As she brings her fingers to the boil, it erupts, spilling hundreds of baby spiders out of the side of her face and into the bathroom. The story sounds far-fetched, certainly, but many of us still fear the possibility that one day we too will experience the sheer terror of watching another creature emerge from our bodies. In this episode of Creeparoni's Truth of Tales, we will learn the truth about internal infestations and come to know the beings that call our bodies home, some for the better, but more for the far worse. For more tales of true horror, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and click the bell to be reminded of when I drop new episodes. The reality of being human is that so many things do live inside us without us even knowing about it. Some of these things we never even give a second thought to, even when we learn about them. For instance, think about the flora of your gut. Inside your stomach and intestines, you have groups of bacteria and even fungi that call you home sweet home. For instance, yeast is a fungi that functions as a parasite in our bodies. They've existed for millions of years, and they use the byproducts from our cells as food to stay alive. This relationship, however, is mostly symbiotic, meaning that both humans and the yeast fungi get something out of the deal. The yeast gets nourishment and a cozy place to reproduce itself, and we get an internal buddy to help us digest foods more effectively. There are other types of bacteria that live inside our guts and perform similar functions for us. You can kind of view them as tenants, paying their dues to use us as a walking bed and breakfast. Yeast is an important thing to have, and you're right to feel a little warm and fuzzy about its microscopic existence inside you this very second. But even yeast has a dark side that happens to be bright white when it rears its ugly head. Sometimes, when the balance of different bacteria, fungi, and chemicals in the body becomes off-kilter, yeast grows and grows and grows, resulting in a yeast infection that can turn your normally pink tongue a nasty, cauliflowery white. The same overgrowth can occur in other parts of the body as well. Thankfully, antifungals can knock the parasitic yeast fungi back into its rightful place as a microscopic digestive helper. But, back to spiders in your face. Has that really happened? The good news is that actual spiders don't lay eggs in human faces, but there are possibly tiny arachnids living on your face right now. Demodex are 8-legged parasitic mites that are so tiny you need an actual microscope to see them. What are they doing on your face? Not much, just eating away at your skin cells and sebum, then laying eggs in your eyelashes. Estimates from several sources predict that about 50% of adults have them, and that number rises to almost 100% once you're around 70 years old. They are contagious and can be spread through contact with things like mascara wands and pillowcases. For the most part, scientists believe they are basically harmless and may actually help eat some damaging bacteria. However, for a percentage of the population, they cause trouble. Because they love to snack around and reproduce in your eyelashes, they can potentially cause blepharitis or blurry vision. If they infest the skin of the face, it's believed they can contribute to conditions like rosacea and acne in some hosts. How do you know if your itchy eyes, acne, or irritated skin is from Demodex invasion? You don't, unless you see a doctor who can use a microscope to look for their spidery little bodies amongst your lashes or on your facial skin. Thankfully, if you are found to harbor these particular parasites, a doctor can prescribe a simple skin cleaner that will strip them away. For now, at least. But just because spiders don't lay eggs inside your body doesn't mean that other creatures won't. Dermatopia hominis, the human botfly, is a parasitic fly that is common to the Americas. It looks like a combination between a bee and a fly, but it lacks the mouth parts that a bee would have. First, it parasitizes other parasites like ticks and mosquitoes by laying its eggs on them. Then, once those parasites attempt to fasten to a human for blood prey, the botfly eggs invade the skin of the human host. Then, the egg grows into a large maggot under the skin, creating a lump with a hole through which the maggot breathes. After several weeks of growing inside the human skin, the botfly pushes itself out of the wound so that it may complete its development in the ground. The large, cyst-like pockets of botfly maggots are painful and may produce significant quantities of pus. However, scientists note that botflies actually don't pose too much risk to humans, other than the infection that could occur from the hole in the skin caused by the maggot as it breathes and emerges from the skin. Once identified on a host, they can be easily removed by a doctor with a pair of tweezers. Growing up in the southeastern United States, I've always been afraid of another type of parasite. My parents and grandparents always warned me not to run barefoot near the freshly tilled gardens or in pastures containing livestock. At the beginning, when I was quite young, I would ask why and get the typical "because I said so" adults so often use when they don't like to explain. However, I could sense that something fearful must lurk in the dirt of my homestead. Once, after being caught with particularly dirty feet, my parents finally explained that running around barefoot was dangerous because I could get filled up with worms. Hookworms are intestinal parasites that affect not only humans, but other types of animals as well. The baby hookworms are excreted in the dung of the animal or human infested with them. These larvae, with their finely developed little mouths, are able to pierce the skin of the foot and travel up through the body to the lungs, where they are coughed up. Innocently, the human swallows after coughing, and the worm moves to where it will reside until it's eradicated, the small intestine. There, it latches and feeds and reproduces itself over and over and over. Hookworms can live up to 15 years in the intestines, where they gorge themselves on human blood and the nutrients within. A single hookworm can lay up to 30,000 eggs per day. Infestation can become so severe that the person becomes anemic from the blood loss associated with the worms. Perhaps most strangely, larvae can live for years in the skin, then travel to the intestines to take the place of worms that die. Once again, modern medicine has an answer to this problem. Multiple medications are available to rid the body of these disgusting bloodsuckers. Maybe you'll think twice before running around in the dirt with your bare feet. But perhaps one of the scariest internal infestations is one you already have, a potentially mind-controlling parasite called Toxoplasma Gondii. This invisible-to-the-eye parasite is present in some cat feces and may be transmitted through food that hasn't been cooked properly. In mice, this parasite invades the brain and causes the mice to go against their cat avoidance instinct. Instead, infected mice actually seek out cats, and the result is that they become easy meals for our feline companions. When humans contact toxoplasmosis, they may suffer a range of symptoms like headaches, swollen glands, vision loss, and potential pregnancy loss. Or, most commonly, they may experience no symptoms at all until the immune system is impaired in some way. It is estimated that up to half of the human population is infected with the toxoplasmosis parasite. Thankfully, most infections clear on their own and don't require any treatment. In the cases where treatment is warranted because of symptoms or risks to an unborn baby, certain antibiotics are able to be prescribed which are effective against the parasite. However, some scientists hypothesize that the effects of Toxoplasma Gondii may be more insidious than flu-like symptoms. Although it is yet to be officially proven, they wonder if this parasite affects humans in a way that is similar to the effects in mice, causing people to seek out cats and, in some cases, hoard them. Maybe it will be hard to look at your sweet kitty the same way, knowing that there's a possibility it's controlling your mind through pathogens in its excrement. So, little monsters happen to be all around us, and, in many cases, even inside us. The human body isn't just a bag of bones and meat, but an abode for other creatures as well, both helpful and sinister. There are things you can do, of course, that help improve your resistance to certain internal infestations, but you can never really be rid of all the different organisms that seek you out as a host. In fact, you shouldn't, since some of these organisms are helpful to us in some way. For the others, well, I guess it's best to keep your feet covered and your food cooked thoroughly. At least you can take consolation from the fact that you don't have to worry about baby spiders crawling out of your face.